Welcome. It's a beautiful day here at the LICA Farm. Thanks for coming out today to witness the mock line strike, brought to you by the Iowa Pipeline Association as part of their continued efforts to promote damage prevention and safety awareness. And that is what we'll be presenting today. We'll be focusing on damage prevention and safety. We'll present two scenarios, the first of which will focus on the proper way to plan for and execute an excavation in Iowa. We'll also present a scenario showing you, depicting the wrong way to plan for and implement an excavation in Iowa. All right then, let's get started. We're ready to begin the proper way to plan for and conduct an excavation in Iowa.
The best way to plan for an excavation is well in advance of the excavation itself. Getting out to the job site to get a lay of the land, if you will. To come out ahead of schedule and look for the telltale signs. See what the scope of the project's going to be. Looks like they've already got the equipment out here. Looks like they're planning this pretty diligently. As part of the planning process, we've got an equipment operator here along with a spotter. They're actually at the site, like I said, well in advance of the project itself. They're here to scope it out and talk about the proposed excavation, which, unbeknownst to them, will cross a natural gas pipeline. The equipment operator has a can of white paint in his hand, and what he's doing now is he's marking out the proposed area of excavation. This is what we refer to as white lining. This is an important communications tool. This really makes it clear for the locators. Excavators need to also be aware of their surroundings, and that's why it's a good idea to come out and scope the project out. Here you can see there are pipeline markers, and it's hard to see, but there's actually a valve in the ground over to the right of the personnel here. Those are clear indicators that there are underground facilities present. The excavator is now making a call to Iowa One Call with his cell phone, and it's easy. He's just dialing 811. It is very important that excavators always follow this procedure. This is a law, contacting Iowa One Call at least 48 hours prior to doing any excavation, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. When making a notice to Iowa One Call, contractors need to have information available beforehand. When doing an excavation within a city, you'll need to know the street address, you'll need to know the name and address of the excavator's telephone number, the type and extent of the proposed excavation, whether the discharge of explosives is anticipated, the date and time the excavation is to begin, the precise location of the excavation on the property, and the name of the housing development and property owner if known. Now, it's a little bit different outside of a city. You'll have to know the county, township, range, and section number, along with the name and address of the excavator, the excavator's telephone number, the type and extent of the proposed excavation, whether the discharge of an explosives is anticipated, the date and time the excavation is to begin, and again, the precise location of the excavation on the property. Looks like they've done everything diligently now that they've completed their on-site planning beforehand and made that required notice to Iowa One Call. The excavators are actually free to leave the site and attend to their other projects. So the pipeline locator has now responded to the One Call notice. He's arrived on site. And as I said previously, locators have up to 48 hours to respond, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. The locators need to get a signal on the underground facility. So what this locator is going to try to do is connect directly to the underground facility, the pipeline in this case. And with that valve, he should have access to it. Now, in the event a locator cannot access the facility directly, they'll use their equipment to put a slight electrical charge into the ground, and that way they can pick up a signal as to where that structure is in the ground. Once a locator determines that he has a good, clear signal that he's actually picking up with his instrument there where the pipeline's buried, they'll go ahead and mark that signal on the ground with paint that will correspond with the American Public Works Association Uniform Color Code. Let me read that for you. The APWA Uniform Color Code is white for proposed excavation, red for electric, yellow is for gas, orange is communication, Green is for sewer, blue is for water, purple is reclaimed water, and pink is for temporary survey markings. As you can see, the pipeline markers say that there's natural gas there. And the locator is putting down his yellow flag there that actually says the name of the gas pipeline company on it. It's important beforehand, and we'll cover this, when you're at a site and you see pipeline markers, there's information on those markers, and typically that'll have the contact information. You want to always write that down and have that ready in case you need it. He's picking up a good clear signal with his instruments. He's got a transmitter receiver, and he's able to see that signal where the facility lies, and he can mark it accordingly. You can see this too, that where he put the flags, where he got that clear signal, it's offset from where the pipeline markers are. And this is important because the pipeline does not necessarily occupy the space directly where those pipeline markers are. That's a big misconception. Could be anywhere within that right-of-way. And what the locator's doing now is he's gone ahead and completed his locating and marking. So he's going to go ahead and contact Iowa One Call and use the electronic status report. He can survey what he's done there and put it in a report back to Iowa One Call. This is basically a locate marking status report. Iowa One Call will then transmit that back out to the excavator via fax or via email. And as I said previously, you can go online to Iowa One Call and find the status report. This is part of the required electronic positive response system in Iowa. So far, things are going the way they should be going. The contractors have followed protocol. The locator has responded. He got a good, clear signal on that underground facility by hooking up to it. And again, I want to reiterate, you can see where the pipeline markers are in relation to where the actual flags are. And that plays a critical part when planning for an excavation. And again, the pipeline markers represent natural gas, as do the yellow flags. Locator is obviously moving on to do more locates. They are very busy in Iowa. The locators and underground facility operators in Iowa conduct about 2 million locates annually. We have another responder coming on site. It looks like it's the excavator. So what's occurred here is after verifying that all the utilities have responded, by looking at that ticket status report, the locator knows it's safe to return to the site. And here they come. They'll have their locate markings down. So discovering and realizing that their excavation is going to cross a natural gas pipeline, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to contact the pipeline operator to let that pipeline operator know there's a conflict. Anytime that your excavation will occur within 25 feet of a natural gas transmission pipeline, you automatically have to have a standby. You have to have a gas operator on site. When the gas operator receives that notice and determines that the excavation is within 25 feet, they will contact the excavator to make that arrangement. In this case, the contractors are being diligent. They're really applying safety and damage prevention standards by reaching out to the operator. And it looks like he's on site right now. That was quick. So the pipeline technician is arriving right now. He's going to need to engage in a conversation with the equipment operator and the spotter. What they're going to want to do is discuss the planned excavation, and the operator is going to have to make it clear to the excavators, just what the requirements are for excavating near their infrastructure. And this really is a typical scenario where the representative of the pipeline will come out, discuss in detail what's happening, what the proposed excavation is, what they anticipate, whether they can move the excavation because it is in conflict with the natural gas pipeline, or maybe have a standby and hand dig it to determine the exact depth. By law, an operator can request that the excavators hand dig to test precisely where that underground facility is through visual inspection. Looks like they've come to an agreement, and what we want to do is establish the safest standards possible. And in this case, the right thing was done, the right planning process. And I want to overview that with you. The proper way to prepare for safe and legal excavations is to always review and view the excavation site prior to the actual excavation. And that means arriving at the site whenever possible. Always notify Iowa One Call. It's very easy. You simply dial 811 on the telephone, or you go online to iowaonecall.com and you do an online ticket. wait the required 48 hours. If all of the operators have responded within the 48 hours, excavation can begin, but you're not going to know that unless you're checking your status report. So it's very important to make sure you check the status report on the locates. Notify the operator of underground facilities when there's a conflict. That's very, very important. And always, always observe your surroundings and proceed with caution.
Now we're ready to present the second scenario, depicting the wrong way to plan for and conduct an excavation in Iowa.
So here come our contractors who are going to plan an excavation. And in this situation, these contractors are planning a new drainage line installation that will, unbeknownst to them, cross a natural gas transmission pipeline. What bothers me is we've got the equipment operator already engaging at the equipment. The contractor, look, you know, it looks like he's making a fundamental mistake here, because what he's doing, it looks like he's trying to line up where the pipeline is based on the pipeline markers. That approach is dangerous and it's inaccurate. As we've discussed previously, pipelines don't necessarily run straight between pipeline markers. That can be buried anywhere in the right-of-way. Furthermore, markers, flags, and paint don't show the diameter, exact location, depth, or pressure of a pipeline. These contractors are preparing to do the actual excavation without making that required notice to Iowa 1 call. Evidently, they would rather gamble and risk the consequences instead of waiting for the proper locate markings. And there are severe consequences. There's the danger of actually digging into the pipeline. There's the liability. This is really nonsense. They're actually putting a bucket in right where the pipeline occurs. Oh my, the worst case scenario has just occurred. They've struck a natural gas pipeline. This is a serious scenario. The natural gas is now blowing. It's releasing under tremendous pressure. There's a serious risk of an explosion. Thinking fast, the equipment operator, he shut down the equipment and he's moved himself out of harm's way. But it looks like the spotter is down. He's injured himself. He made a fundamental mistake by running towards the release instead of away from the product. It doesn't look like he's going to get up. He cannot get himself out of harm's way. This is potentially a very serious situation on our hands here. It looks like maybe the equipment operator is out of harm's way now. He's making a notice to 911. Make sure to get out of explosive range and upwind before the releasing product can get to you. You've got to make that 911 call. That's essential. In the event of a natural gas leak, the vapor will be lighter than air and therefore rise. Should this be a hazardous liquids release, that's going to be either a liquid or a gas vapor, and that's typically going to be heavier than air, and that's going to settle in low-lying areas. Here come the emergency responders on site now. What the police has done, they've arrived on site, and they're getting the excavator out of harm's way. They're going to have to get that excavator to a safe location, secure the site, and gather as much information about the situation as possible. They're likely going to have to close down roads and access areas. The spotter is still in a bad situation. He's unable to get himself out of harm's way. You've got escaping product under tremendous pressure. I hear the sirens. There could be an explosion at any minute. We got the fire department on hand right now. They got to quickly assess the situation, set up a command post, assign emergency directives, and they've got to be wearing their protective equipment, all of it, to make sure they're safe. They're going to have to communicate promptly with the equipment operator, and they're going to have to get that spotter out of harm's way. You can see they're charging their fire hose. They're going to use that to keep themselves safe and the spotter safe as they move in to rescue that spotter. You know, they are at risk of an explosion. Natural gas releasing literally is just looking for an ignition source. Using this wall of water helps to minimize that ignition source. They're displacing the ratio of gas and oxygen, so it's not at that critical ignition stage, but it's still an extremely, extremely volatile situation. Looks like the rescue team is coming in with a backboard while everyone else is holding down the wall of water. They'll check him to make sure that they can load him effectively. They need to get out of harm's way as soon as possible. If the pipeline went up right now, no one would survive in this situation. What's critical here is the backhoe operator was smart enough to turn the backhoe off. That itself would be an ignition source. It probably would have gone up by now. And we still have the people there laying down the wall of water to displace that ignition stage. They're going to strap the spotter onto the backboard, transmit him over to the EMS crew as soon as possible. Hopefully he'll be okay. One person takes 5 firefighters to lift. You can see the fire crew is now backing out of the incident zone. They need to get themselves out of harm's way as well. You still have blowing gas under tremendous pressure. One of the main things the police will need to do in response is to reach out to the pipeline owner. They've got to make contact with the pipeline operator and let them know there's an incident and what's occurring. Looks like the pipeline operator representative is here right now on site. He's going to have to shut down this pipeline. It's absolutely crucial. But he's going to have to contact the control room at the pipeline center and get the proper information, instructions to shut this thing down. Each situation is unique, and with any event, a proper shutdown may require closing off multiple valves in sequence. If it's not done right, you can make the situation worse. Non-pipeline personnel should never, ever attempt to operate a valve. It has to be done through the service tech, through authorized pipeline technicians. And it looks like our pipeline technician has actually conducted an effective shutdown. The fire crew is going to remain on site here to monitor conditions with the hoses at the ready. A pipeline rupture such as this can happen in a literal instant. And in that instant, you can have a catastrophe. I can't tell you what has been averted here. It really, in this scenario, it's lucky that the excavators escaped with their lives. And the thing is, this entire incident could have been avoided altogether had proper procedures been followed.
Now, having just seen the wrong way to plan for and conduct an excavation, let's review the critical elements. Always notify Iowa One Call at least 48 hours prior to beginning any excavating procedures, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. And remember, pipeline markers or flags do not show the exact location, diameter, depth, or pressure of a pipeline. Some pipelines can be shut down remotely, but many will have to be shut down in the field. Non-pipeline personnel should never attempt to operate a valve. Only authorized pipeline personnel should operate a valve. Be prepared to meet with a pipeline representative on site whenever an excavation will occur within 25 feet of a natural gas transmission pipeline. If you know there's a pipeline near a proposed excavation, it's a good idea to contact the pipeline operator prior to excavating. If a line strike should ever occur, do not rush into the releasing product. Always run away from and upwind from the incident, far enough away to avoid an explosion. And then, as soon as possible, call 911 and also contact the pipeline operator listed on the pipeline marker. Be sure to check these pipeline markers prior to excavating and write down that critical information to be prepared. I'd like to acknowledge all of our sponsors, the folks that worked hard to bring this mock line strike to you today. But first and foremost, I want to thank you, our audience, for attending and for viewing today's event.